What is up, everyone? Welcome back to a very special live edition of Protect and Serve with myself and Mike Fanone. But right now, I'm here with Sam Osterhout, who is executive producer for Lincoln Square. And we wanted to talk really quickly before Michael comes on about what is happening in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. Sam, you spent 10 years of your life in Minneapolis?
I did. Yeah, I went to grad school there.
Okay.
And in a lot of ways it feels like my home. I you know, I kind of feel like I'm from there to some degree. I have a ton of friends there. And the I think it's a lot darker there than people understand. From a lot of friends who I've spoken with, you leave the house and you hear whistles, you see ice, people are banding together.
So it's
A friend,
not isolated, because I know in LA there's certain
right?
neighborhoods that weren't getting hit. And I think for a lot of people, until they see it in their hometown, that's only when it actually resonates. So you're telling me it's everywhere throughout the suburbs, the city, everywhere.
Exactly. And there's a band of really close suburbs that are essentially Minneapolis. St. Louis Park and a few of these other places where there's just a ton of activity. I mean, there's 3,000 federal ICE agents in the city, and there's roughly 600 police. And by the way, those 600 police aren't on duty all at once.
Well, I was gonna say they can't work 24/7.
No, no. So it is, I spoke with a journalist in Minneapolis who on air stopped short of saying it was an occupation, but that it feels like an occupation. And now we're getting that language a lot now, that they feel like they're being occupied.
Well, and I saw somebody post, and I've interviewed Barbara F. Walter before, the author of How Civil Wars Start and How to Stop
Yes.
Them. And in the book, she talks about how civil war in the US, or if it were to happen in the US, would look different than what people are picturing, which is, battle lines being drawn. And no, that's not what a modern day civil war looks like. And so I can't remember who was posting today, but stated that it looks they'd drawn up battlegrounds. I think it was a professor out of I can't think of where the professor is out of, but she's like, this is what it would look like. What's happening in Minneapolis right now is what a civil war would look like, where you have the people out in the streets, kind of defending their territory, for lack of a better word.
I think, and by the way, for everyone in the audience, I am not Michael Fanone. I almost every day wish that I was more like Michael Fanone, but I am not. He will be here shortly. But we wanted to cover some ground on Minneapolis before he comes in. And especially, I'm really looking forward to hearing about his experience yesterday at the hearing.
Mm-hmm.
But in Minneapolis, it has that feeling. And here's another thing. I've heard stories of people hiding brown children in their homes, right? A kid comes home from school or is on, does remote school now because they're afraid to go to school. And the rest of the day, they sit in their room. They can't leave it. They don't want to turn on lights. Like, where else have we heard something like that, right?
Exactly. Well, and I think this is the part that is really pulling at everyone's heartstrings, is it's how it's affecting the children. We're looking at kids who've already been through so much, right? They've been through COVID, they have school shootings. It's just trauma upon trauma. And now I think they're basically allowed to go remote if they don't feel safe being at school. But I'm thinking about, like, what effect is this going to have, both short term and long term? Are any of the people that you're talking to have kids where the
Yeah.
kids themselves are expressing this kind of trauma?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so a friend of mine has 4 children, all under the age of roughly 12 or 13. And, he and his wife uh, go to the school every day to ensure the safety of the, to just be present. And there's a whole group of parents who show up as well to be there to make sure that if ICE shows up, because they do, if they show up, that they're not unresisted.
It's hard enough to be a parent as it is to
Well,
have to also now multitask and defend your neighborhood, your block.
no, and think about, and as alluded to, the emotional damage that this does. Like COVID, my kids were young during COVID, and they were kind of like, I don't know, remote school is kind of fun. I got to hang out with mom and dad all day, and like we ate stuff that we don't usually get to eat. And this is not that. This is like somebody is coming for me, and there are stories where, and again, this is not reporting. This is anecdotal. I can't corroborate and all of this, that, and the other. But the stories I'm hearing are from people who happen to. ICE comes to your door because they go door to door. You're white, and they say, "Carry on." If you look conservative, if I don't know, like if definitely not if you're wearing a lavender shirt or whatever, they're probably not going to bug me about it. But like, if you look like the type who might help them, they'll say, where are your Asian neighbors? Like, where do they live? Where are, right? They're very much, again, not reporting, anecdotal, looking for brown people.
So we keep saying that this isn't America, but it's starting to look like this is America in many ways. I feel like how are you keeping yourself from normalizing this in your system? I think it's something that everybody has to think about because we keep seeing it. And as our brains see it, they start to incorporate it. David Pepper said, we're about to accept fascism. This was years ago when I had a conversation with him. We're going to accept fascism the way we accepted baggage fees. Like at first It was outrage. And then it was like, oh, okay, I guess we have to pay all this to bring a bag on board.
Well, I mean, think about this. Like, people were more pissed about not being able to smoke in bars back in the day than they feel, right? Like, how many arguments did I get in with some idiot who just was so mad that he couldn't smoke in a bar? And, we're having these conversations now. And it is, I'm worried, just like you're saying, that the reality of this is so devastating and so traumatic that we have no other coping mechanism but to stuff it inside of ourselves. And let it sit there and then continue with our, we have to continue to feed the kids. We've got to walk the dog.
I was gonna say, or do what Mike did yesterday, which thank you everybody for your patience. He'll be on soon, which is to express the thing, to say the thing. You and I both come from comedy backgrounds. And one of the reasons why people love comedy is because comedians voice what everybody wants to say. But feels like they can't say because of decorum. And so we've been upset with Democrats for a long time for not saying the thing. Do you feel like there's starting to be a shift now where people are like, fuck it, I'm going to say the thing?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think, and specifically Minneapolis, I've heard a lot of kind of, a lot of my friends are not happy with Tim Walz and Fry, the mayor. Which I was like, oh, us outsiders who see them on social media are like amazing, but they're like, look, words aren't enough right now. You need to protect us. Our lives are in danger. Our children, Liam Ramos, the 5-year-old who was taken to Texas with his father, and used as bait to capture his father. You can't see that and think, now it's time for great rhetoric. But I will say, right, like this, I should give a speech on this. But I will say that speech at least is a first step. And when Fry said, ICE, you got to get the fuck out of Minneapolis, it felt it was visceral. Like a release. It was visceral. I was like, somebody's saying it. You have to do more than say it, but you got to say it too.
Well, and I think they're in a tough spot because all of this is so unprecedented, even though we knew it was coming. They got the funding in the big, beautiful bill. They announced these operations. We know they're sending in 1,000, 2,000 people, but then these cities are not set up for this. A city is not set up to have to battle the federal government trying to invade, to take over the city. And so I think for a lot of these young leaders, they're for the first time in their career, having with very little experience, having to say, how far am I willing to push this? And I'm starting to ask myself, is that what people are looking for? Like, they're looking for the first, Brandon Johnson has spoken up quite a bit about, general strikes, but also saying, hey, our cops are going to come out and defend protesters. I think people are looking to see, because of the trajectory of things, if this continues, if they continue to get funding and they're training up more people and sending more people into the cities, we're going to reach a fever pitch with this within the next 6 months to a year.
I mean, look, Fry had said, like, hey, I'm trying to have state law enforcement come and push back against federal law enforcement. What is it? What is that actually? There's another word for it when two forces who belong to the same country are fighting each other in the streets, right? It's called the Civil War, like that. And nobody is saying that. Maybe people are starting to,
because it's terrifying. Have you seen, I know you're a movie guy too. Have you seen, I'll ask everybody in the chat too, Civil War, A24's movie?
I just haven't been able to watch it yet.
Oh, let me tell you, it takes a lot. It takes a lot to throw me. And I'd love to know if people have seen it in the comments, but that movie, there was a bone chilling, sorry, spoiler alert, I should say, but hey, if you haven't seen it by now, I think I'm allowed to spoil it, but there's a scene where one of the guys asks, and he's got a gun, and he's like, where are you from? And he said, it was like, he answered, he was afraid to answer California. Basically, he knew if he gave the wrong answer of where he was from, that was it for him. It's the most chilling scene because you feel it, and it's like, oh God, that could happen.
Jesse Plemons, right? Is the
I don't know the name of the actor.
Great. Also great in Friday Night Lights. I think Michael is in studio, and I'm really excited to hear, like, speaking of somebody who expresses what we're all feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I was never as proud of Michael Fanone as I was yesterday, because fuck those guys.
I mean, I'm the biggest fan, and being able to host with him, he knows, is one of my favorite things to do. And we were live on the breakdown when we saw it, and I was like, that's my guy. And there you are, Mike. That's my guy. I feel
about
like
that, guys.
No problem.
I was listening. I was listening in. Thank you. It's too gracious. I've had enough. I'm done. I'm done pretending like this is a legitimate government. I'm done pretending like Donald Trump is the real president of the United States. I'm done pretending that this is anything other than authoritarian fascist takeover of our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't give a fuck that it originated with a Democratic vote. John Fetterman can go kiss my ass. Lots of fucking, authoritarian takeovers began with a Democratic proceeding. And so, you either fight back or you fold and let this happen to the country. Like you guys were saying earlier, it starts with rhetoric. Me telling Troy Nehls, a corrupt cop who now serves as a member of Congress, to go fuck himself when he decided that he was going to blame police officers for what happened on January 6th. My message to Troy Nehls is clear. It's, hey, Troy, the math don't add up, buddy. I know that you love Donald Trump so much that you couldn't possibly hold him accountable for anything. But if his supporters weren't there and they weren't ginned up by his lies about the 2020 election, which you still fail to admit was a free and fair election and that Joe Biden was the rightful winner, his supporters would not have stormed the Capitol that day. If Donald Trump had not said, let's go to the Capitol, I mean, Jack Smith, cited in his testimony the countless times in which Jan 6 defendants cited Donald Trump's order. He was our commander in chief to go to the Capitol and attack law enforcement officers. Troy Nehls was never a real cop. Even if he ever, served in a legitimate law enforcement capacity, he would know that there is no police department in this country that is prepared for 15,000 violent attackers within, just a short period of time notice. And again, I would go back to, and I've said this countless times over the past 5 years, which conspiracy theory are you picking? Are they Trump supporters? Are they, paid agitators? Are they FBI confidential informants? Are they Antifa? Who the fuck was there, Troy Nehls? And it's just, and I'm sick of pretending that these proceedings are anything other than a media spectacle. It plays to the right, it plays to the left, and meanwhile, good career public servants like Jack Smith and his family get dragged through the mud along the way. Fuck both of those parties for even participating in that hearing. Jack, go ahead. Sorry.
No, and I'm so glad that you said that, because it undermines everybody having to watch it get relitigated when we all know what the truth is. We all saw it with our own eyes. And I want to play a clip from the hearing where Swalwell talks about that. But seeing it kind of relitigated, it undermines the actual truth, which we've all seen it. Why do we have to have the conversation over and over again? Meanwhile, they're robbing everybody blind. So we're going to talk about the hearing tonight, everyone. We're going to talk about what's happening in Minneapolis on the ground. Thank you, Sam, for sharing your personal perspective on all of that. We're going to talk about a chilling video that I saw out of Maine now that they are operating in Maine. They're shitty at what they're doing right now, and they're expanding it and scaling it, even though that'll just create more chaos. So Sam, thank you very much for that perspective. We'll see you. And Mike, okay. The hearing, so many flowers are being sent your way. And it was interesting to see, because so many right-wing provocateurs online tried to call you out. And then the comments were just flooded with people like, Fanone's a freaking hero, man. So they kept failing in their efforts to try to denigrate you, which I freaking love. But the hearing yesterday, you're in the room. And I'm admiring your restraint, truly, the entire time, because it's like being gaslit to your face, right? Like you're in the room being gaslit. And so I want to play Swalwell's clip, because I think he articulates it pretty well, what was happening in the room. So if we could play that.
Mr. Smith, I want you to have the utmost confidence in what you did. You did everything right. Harry Dunn, Danny Hodges, Sergeant Cannell, Mike Fanone, they did everything right. These guys, my Republican colleagues, are a joke. They're wrong. History will harshly judge them. So I want you to lean in today. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You did everything right, sir. And these guys are so lucky they're not under oath, because they would have to tell you what they really think of Trump. They call him crooked. They call him cruel. They call him a scumbag. I've heard you all say it. You're lucky you're not under Trump, but when the lights go on and the cameras are on, you're tiny, you're small, you shrink. Everyone remembers Matt Gaetz coming over here after a committee hearing. He would laugh at how stupid he thought Trump was. This is all a show. And Mr. Smith, you're just the latest act that they've brought in. But they can't erase what happened on January 6th because we saw it with our own eyes.
With our own eyes. And that's exactly it. And so we were talking about this already, but this idea that an adult says what they mean and they mean what they say. So why aren't there any more adults in the room anymore, Mike? What the fuck's going on? Where are the adults?
I mean, they're too busy kissing Donald Trump's ass and trying to look out for their own political careers. And then there's MAGA cultists. I mean, there are people that are white nationalists. Guys like Andy Biggs. That guy's a true believer. He's a white nationalist. He's a racist, and an incredibly dangerous person in the position he's in. He's somebody who, along with Jim Jordan and others, there's a lot of talk about the subpoenaing of these toll records, and how it was Republican lawmakers. Well, Jack Smith obviously did a good job of testifying as to why it was that they subpoenaed these toll records. It's because these were the individuals that were communicating with Donald Trump in the midst of the insurrection. And so, they obviously wanted to understand, what those phone calls would have been about, which, is investigation 101. But I think that, I see no purpose to these types of hearings. It gets us nowhere. You talked about, we all saw it with our own eyes. I mean, listen, I've said for a long time now, really since the election, the most recent election, that, we're at a point in America where, like, I'm done convincing people. I don't give a shit if you believe what I say. I don't care if you've seen my body worn camera footage and have a different opinion. I don't care. All I want to do is defeat my enemies. And anyone who sides with this administration is my enemy. They are the enemy of this democracy. They are the enemy of this country. They're enemy of the people who have compassion and empathy for their neighbors. They need to be destroyed, dismantled, and dismissed from our country.
Well, then that's the proper use of energy, right? Like, if you are running an obstacle race, you're not stopping and looking at the obstacles and trying to convince them not to be there. You're looking at your end goal and you're like, I'm going to get to that end goal. And so I think you're 100% right. That's how we preserve our energy in order to be able to sustain the fight. I think it is important to point out patterns that we're seeing. I love pattern recognition. And so every time they create this sort of chaos, this theater, it's obviously to hide something. It's to distract us. There is something that we're not talking about anymore at all, which I'm afraid to even say the word because I feel like the algorithm will just push it all the way down. But you know what I'm all talking about, the EPSTEIN files. No one's talking about that anymore. And so always it's the sleight of hand. And of course, who is the chaos creator? Trump. And he was on Truth Social apparently posting during the hearing, from what I hear. I didn't see it, but I heard Nagoose read some of it. Can we pull that up?
Aware that President Trump is live tweeting, I guess you call it truth socialing, as we speak. Are you aware of this, about this hearing?
No.
Let me read to you what he posted an hour and a half ago. Deranged Jack Smith is being decimated before Congress. It was over when they discussed his past failures and unfair prosecutions. He destroyed many lives under the guise of legitimacy. Jack Smith is a deranged animal who shouldn't be allowed to practice law. If you're a Republican, his license would be taken away from him, and far worse. Hopefully the Attorney General is looking at what he's done. We have a word for this. It's called weaponization. It's called corruption. Mr. Smith, if you care to respond, I'll give you an opportunity, but I will simply say we are grateful for your service to this country. We appreciate your fidelity to the rule of law. And I would echo the comments that have been made by my Democratic colleagues to ignore the noise that you hear from so many of my colleagues who would debase themselves in this way. It is, in my view, subversive of the oaths that we took to defend the Constitution. I'm happy to give you an opportunity, Mr. Smith, if you'd like to respond.
I don't have anything to add.
Thank you for your service. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
I love the nothing to add here. Isn't Trump supposed to be on the world stage right now, trying to represent our interests, and he manages to have time to Truth Social about a hearing?
I mean, it's, the projection done by Donald Trump specifically, but MAGA world and his administration there's no comparison in world history. Everything that Donald Trump says about everyone else is exactly who and what Donald Trump is himself. Donald Trump is a deranged animal. That's exactly what he is. And it's fucking laughable. At this point, I've been subjected to this, for years now. And so, all you can do is just laugh. I mean, when I looked at Jack Smith testify, I was absolutely in awe of his ability to remain cool, calm, and collected. Right? Because it's not just you have to look at it in the totality of the circumstances. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could easily sit there and listen to somebody like Troy Nels and these other clowns say this shit, and it would be, it wouldn't impact me in the least. But knowing what Jack Smith has endured over the past, 4 years since he was appointed to special counsel, and then to have to come into this meeting, this hearing, which is so beneath him, mm-hmm. And give answers to these criminals. I mean, imagine being, I viewed it as like, hey, this is, I can't put words in Jack Smith's mouth, but had I been there, it's like the criminals are the ones who are cross-examining the police or law enforcement. It's total bizarro land.
No, it's the upside down, and it's the rewriting of history in real time. And what we're 2 weeks from when they put up a new the January 6th website on the I don't know if anybody's gone to see that, but on whitehouse.gov, they rewrote the history of January 6th. And so we are seeing them attempt to do this in real time. And yes, he is so nonplussed. I need to know his meditation routine or what breathing exercises Jack Smith is doing, because that's what's the morning routine with the guy who throws the water on his face? I want to see Jack Smith's morning routine. That's what we all need. Maybe if we could get a change.org petition going and say, Jack Smith, tell us how you do it, because we're going to need that kind of resolve over the next several years. But I want the accountability. So no one's being held accountable, and we're about to jump into the stuff that's actually on the ground happening right now. But before we do, I want to talk about Bandy X. Lee. She was the psychiatrist who had, with a bunch of other psychiatrists, basically published a book several years ago saying that Donald Trump is a malignant narcissist. And if you have somebody who is like that at the head, who is the leader of an organization or of a society, that kind of behavior trickles down into the rest of society if you have that behavior unchecked. And that was why it was so important to hold him accountable. And so since he wasn't held accountable, at least not for now, we have what we're seeing in Minneapolis right now, which is unchecked power wielded by morons who think that because they've had how many weeks of training and a badge, that they can terrorize high schoolers, take 5-year-olds. And so when the culture of policing, of all of this, does anybody ever get held accountable? Truly.
I mean, there's a myriad of police officers who over the years have been, tried and convicted of various crimes and held accountable for, everything from corruption to, excessive force to murder. You look in the case of Derek Chauvin with George Floyd. That being said, I think it's good to focus on the fact that the training. I mean, that's an aspect of it, but I don't think what you're seeing right now is, this officer that shot Renee Good. He was somebody who'd been on the department for I think 8 years, 8 years plus.
Yeah.
And so I think it's more about individuals who are participating in these operations that are ideologically aligned with the administration. I think they're taking people. I mean, everybody thinks of law enforcement as like we're all interchangeable, everybody's the same. Street cops have a very different job from federal law enforcement officers. It's almost like a completely separate career field. You're dealing with people on a daily basis versus conducting investigations versus, in the case of Customs and Border Patrol, I mean, you're essentially, it's almost like a paramilitary organization that's guarding the border, and dealing with people who have at the border limited or less rights, I should say, when it comes to things like search and seizure than an American citizen who is, inside of the country. And
Well-
and what you're seeing them do is act as though they're at the border and they're interacting with people who are not U.S. citizens. And,
Worse, they're acting like they're
yeah.
enemy combatants. Like
Yes.
the footage that I'm seeing, just the fact that they would pull out a chemical weapon, basically tear gas, that they would pull it out in a neighborhood and use it and deploy it. Like
that's a symptom of leadership. These individual agents would not be behaving that way if they were held accountable for, those individual actions. They're not being held accountable. In fact, it's the polar opposite. They're actually being encouraged to be more brutal, more forceful, not just with undocumented immigrants, but also with U.S. citizens. And they're, after this most recent shooting of Renee Good, which, we all watched, we all saw it with our own eyes. We all, can say, if we're being honest or have any idea as to what, good policing looks like, that was a bad shooting. And that, this agent was out of control. He acted with malice, and he should be held criminally accountable for that. But when the agency comes out and says he's a hero right away, and not only is Renee Good, was she in the wrong, but she's a domestic terrorist.
Which
that sends a message,
No, it does send a message. And I don't know if you saw JD Vance. He was in Minneapolis. Yeah. And so I don't know. I don't think we have any of those clips. If we have a clip, can we play it? Because I want to talk about it. But he basically is, we do have it. Play the clip.
Roll the tape.
Okay, we don't have it. All right. We can talk about. Okay, this is a protest. Which I'm proud of the people of Minneapolis, by the way. When we talked about accountability, I think the people of Minneapolis are the ones who are ultimately going to hold everyone there accountable. But I don't feel like we're giving JD Vance enough shit, because JD Vance has taken upon himself to go to the city of Minneapolis and then lie to people's faces from ground zero. That to me is absolutely insane. Like well, go ahead.
I agree. It is absolutely insane, but I think at this point in the game, we're dealing with two separate countries. You have those that support Donald Trump and you have those that support democracy. And so when JD Vance goes there and says the things that he says, he's only speaking to his supporters. He's speaking to Trump's supporters. He's speaking to the people on the right. Because if you watch the Fox Entertainment Channel, you'll see that everything is designed to gin up his base, stoke fear, and then show the government in this perfect light that allows them to continue to support this administration's atrocities and unconstitutional behavior.
But they're losing control of the narrative. We talked about Liam, the young boy, before you came on. But when people are seeing this, it doesn't matter, I think, what side of the aisle that you're on when you see a young boy. And he's like a cutie patootie in his little knit hat. Like you couldn't have like a more adorable kid. And having these officers loom over him. That's the kind of imagery that I don't care what you say, JD Vance. Like he tried to make it like they were rescuing him, as if somehow they were rescuing him from the cold and then shipping him off to Texas. Make it make sense, right? And so, do you feel like things? It feels like Minneapolis. It feels like things are shifting, which to me tells me the administration's either going to double down, or they might back off a little bit and try to kind of reconsider their strategy. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that more and more Americans are starting to wake up and recognize the fact that they don't have anything left to lose. I mean, I think that's the mindset that we should all have going forward, is that, this is a make or break moment and you have nothing left to lose. That's my advice to these politicians that don't seem to, have the spine or the wherewithal to stand up to the Trump administration is, hey, Democrats, you don't have anything left to lose. The thought that the idea that you're going to have a free and fair election going forward ever again is an absurd thought. And in fact, it's not going to happen unless you fight for it. And if you're not willing to fight, you need to get the fuck out of there and get replaced by somebody who's willing to stand up and meet the moment.
Yeah, I think they're really short-sighted, and there's not nearly enough attention being paid to some of the news that came out this week, like the fact that ICE is basically saying privately amongst themselves that they can violate the Fourth Amendment, that they can just enter a home with an administrative warrant as opposed to a judicial warrant. So you're a law enforcement analyst. Can you talk about the difference between, because a judicial warrant signed by a judge, but then
administrative warrants are just signed by like a supervisor or another agent. Supervisor.
So like an ICE supervisor, like so somebody in ICE signs for ICE.
Absolutely, yes.
That's insane.
Exactly. So a judicial warrant is signed off on by a judge, which is why the Fourth Amendment is a very important amendment. Especially when it comes to law enforcement, because it deals with searches and seizures. And in this land, at least up until this administration and this Supreme Court, we recognized, a man's home is his castle. And so, there are very strict legal guidelines, laws that protect homeowners and the occupants of a residence from law enforcement's unlawful searches and seizures. What this policy change, it's not a legal change, it's just they've adopted a new viewpoint, which is we could just have an administrative warrant and go into your home if we believe that there's a undocumented immigrant inside of that residence. Now, some people would argue like, oh, well, it's specific. It's only if there's an undocumented immigrant that they believe is inside of there. Well, listen, the way that they've gone about, willy-nilly kicking down doors and writing warrants for residences where the undocumented immigrant had not resided there for, literally over a year, I think it was in the case of that Hmong man who was unlawfully detained and brought out in his underwear in the freezing fucking cold. When I would apply for a search warrant for a residence involved in it, revolving around a particular case, and let's say I have a target, and I believe that this target is hiding drugs or some type of contraband inside of this residence. If it's his home, I would still have to, couple that with surveillance showing that I observed this individual going in and out of the residence. I mean, there's so much. You can't just say, well, you know, one time he used that address when he got a parking ticket or a traffic ticket, or it's on his driver's license. That's not enough. You actually have to go take steps to tie that individual, and they're just throwing all of that out the window and saying, we can just basically approve these warrants ourselves and go kick in the door. How that becomes incredibly dangerous for a citizen. Let's say me, Michael Fanone, is asleep, and 3 years ago, somebody lived in my apartment that was undocumented, and now ICE decides they're going to execute a warrant at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, I am a proponent of the Second Amendment, and I protect myself. And if somebody kicks in my fucking door unannounced at 5 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be a problem there, and I'm going to protect myself. And now I'm presented with a situation where unannounced law enforcement comes in, presumably guns drawn, and I'm probably going to end up dead in that encounter for fucking nothing.
And that's what they want. They want the chaos that will ensue when people end up dead. And I'm not a lawyer, but I do listen to Jay-Z. And so, as he says, I'm not a lawyer. I know a little bit, enough that you won't illegally search my shit. So, I recommend everybody to brush up on the Constitution, even though they feel like they don't have to follow it anymore. The law still matters. The law still matters. I have like a little pocket Constitution that I read from like time to time just to like reorient myself. But it's kind of something that I feel like everybody needs to carry around with them now, like in your pocket. Like have a little pocket Constitution
along with your papers.
And your freaking papers. And according to, he was in the 60 Minutes interview, I believe, one of the associate director or something, blah, 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 was basically like, if you're near a Target, not the store, don't go to Target. We're supposed to be boycotting that, y'all. But if you're near an undocumented immigrant Target, but no specifics, just near, they're in their mind legally allowed to question you, up to detaining you, asking you for your papers, etc. And I don't think people realize how dangerous that is.
Well, I mean, dangerous, but also, a clear violation of the United States Constitution. I mean, never in our history have American citizens been required to carry proof of citizenship to be displayed upon demand by law enforcement. I mean, that is the definition of tyranny, of an authoritarian overreach, and it's actually I've been making a lot of jokes about it lately. Is where's all my "Don't tread on me" folks, like even the guys that I used to, kick it with back in the police department, with their Gadsden flag license plates and fucking stickers all over their car. We're living in it today, but I guess it's okay because it's not them. They're the ones that haven't been targeted yet. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this is coming to a city near you.
In this idea that it's not affecting them yet, I want to fast forward into the future. Because I think in their minds, they think, well, under what circumstances would it come to me next? How could it affect me? I want them to flash forward into the future. AI is already rendering many jobs obsolete. So you're finding people getting more and more impoverished, unable to take care of their families. And do you think these tech companies give a shit about whether or not you can feed your family? And so as people become more and more stressed, the situation becomes more and more dangerous. And all of a sudden you find yourself going, oh, wait, this government doesn't care about me. And you think you're going to be able to pull off another January 6th? I don't freaking think so. This government now knows that they can do whatever they want to the people. And because if we're allowing it now, we'll certainly allow it years from now. So I want people to think about that what protests are we going to be allowed to have when we don't have any food and they come around taking everybody's guns? Like that's where this could lead. And so, the don't tread on me's. We actually need you. We need class solidarity right now. Don't tread on me's. Know that. Is that how I call them? Do I call them don't tread on me's? Like,
I heard like Diet MAGA Light.
Mega Light.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like the flashlight, Mag Light, but
They
MAGA
got
Light.
into it thinking that Joe Biden was the tyrannical authoritarian, and now are slowly coming to the realization that it's actually Donald Trump. Much like the the pedophile ring was thought to have been run by the Democrats, and
Out of a
now
pizza parlor.
we're eerily, interestingly, eerily, seems to be a lot of Republicans involved and MAGA that are getting locked up who have an affinity for young children.
Yeah. And as far as tyranny goes and coming to a town near you, Maine is the newest operation. And so a video that came out, I believe it was today. I want to roll that because this is the kind of tyranny that we speak of coming. And yeah, can we roll that clip?
Not illegal to record.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Why are you taking my information down?
Because we have a nice little database.
Oh, good.
And now you're considered a domestic terrorist. So
We're videotaping you? Are you crazy?
A nice little database. So people exercising their First Amendment right to film are being put into a little database and being labeled as domestic terrorists. And if y'all remember, there was a memo. I can't remember what the memo was, but it was basically about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, in which they talked about, anti-American, anti-ICE, if you're anti-Christian, if you're anti-capitalist. It was a long laundry list of things that you could be labeled a domestic terrorist for. And apparently, if they're even using it for a mom of 3, Renee Good, to justify her shooting, are we all going to be in a database, Mike? Is this the tyranny that awaits us?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, under this administration, I still believe that was part of the Doge effort to dive into the IRS and get everybody's social security information, et cetera, et cetera. Who the hell knows what's being done with that and where a lot of that data went. But yeah, I mean, whether the database exists or not, and I believe it does. I believe even Kristi Noem has admitted that this database exists. What an unbelievable thing for an American law enforcement officer to say to somebody who simply disagrees with their actions and is completely within their rights to record law enforcement. It's disgusting. The fact that he would verbally make that and make no mistake about it, that's a threat.
Exactly.
He's threatening that woman to be classified as a domestic terrorist simply because you don't agree with their actions and disagree with this administration. If that's not tyranny, I don't know what the fuck is.
Right. I mean, it's in the flippant attitude. And this is what we talk about when we talk about other countries where people don't have freedom of speech, where the press isn't free. That is literally what is happening in the United States. And I think it's hard when you're in the thick of it to realize how quickly it's happening. But we are now at a point where everybody who goes to the airport is concerned about being tracked. I know people who were flying in and out of the country who were nervous about that. And this government, this regime wants people to be nervous about it because that's how they control us. And Timothy Snyder, you guys, I'm sure all of you are reading his books and following his Instagram and his Substack, but do not obey in advance. Obviously, I think Minneapolis is doing a very good job at not obeying in advance. And I love that woman's response, even knowing what's happened, that Renee Good was murdered in broad daylight, that woman still laughed at him. And I love that. I love that for her.
No, I mean, listen, I think that the people, the citizens are waking up to what's going on and responding appropriately. It's, unfortunately, state and local government, state and local law enforcement, they're starting to use the right words, but like you and Sam were talking about before I jumped on, we're beyond, using strong language and calling out fascism and government overreach. We need to start taking actions to protect people. And it's one thing to say, oh, we're going to deploy law enforcement to protect peaceful protesters. Well, I mean, it's very, the organized protest, yeah, of course, like you can have law enforcement there and they're going to stand there. But we've seen countless incidents of these organized protests in which ICE agents have acted egregiously while state and local authorities stand idly by while, protesters are shot in the face with, tear gas, at point blank range, manhandled, assaulted. And so what I'm calling for is the intervention of state and local law enforcement on behalf of, I mean, listen, we're not talking about some Mexican standoff here. I'm talking about when a state or local law enforcement officer observes an ICE agent commit a crime, use excessive force to intervene and arrest that
Yes.
ICE agent, which they have the authority to do. And in fact, most police departments have a policy requiring officers to intervene if they observe a fellow officer committing a criminal act. And if they don't intervene, they themselves can be subject to criminal prosecution. That I believe was born out of Derek Chauvin and when he murdered George Floyd.
Yeah.
I know my former police department adopted a policy like that if you don't intervene when you are clearly observing what is excessive force or assaultive behavior, that you're going to be held accountable yourself. That's what needs to be applied in these locations. Is it going to create a stir? Absolutely. Could it escalate? Absolutely. But stop pretending like you have something to lose here. You don't. If you stand idly by, they're going to fucking walk all over you.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm ready to see citizens arrests. I don't know if that's a thing anymore, but
It's not a thing.
It's
not a thing.
That's only on Scooby-Doo? Is that's like Scooby-Doo?
Scooby-Doo and what was the cop comedy movies? There was like a bazillion of them.
I was like, I watched all of them, but I don't know if they were
Police Academy. Yeah. You can make a citizen's arrest in Police Academy.
Okay, so that is not my advice to y'all. Everybody, scratch that. No citizens arrests. I repeat, no citizens arrests.
Maybe in Texas, because apparently you can do whatever the fuck you want in Texas. But
in Texas, yes.
But ICE won't be coming to Texas. Don't worry.
Exactly. I was like, they're only wanting to terrorize the blue areas of the country, as we can see. I want to talk about one more thing before we go, is the church protest. I want to roll the clip because it was a protest. So let's roll the clip really quickly. I know we've got it.
He is also the director of the field office for ICE in St. Paul. So someone who claims to worship God, teaching people in this church about God, is out there overseeing ICE agents. Think about what we've experienced. The murder of Renee Good at the hands of ICE. A Venezuelan national shot by ICE. A 6-month-old baby who almost died as a result of ICE unleashing military-grade weapons on our community. How dare you claim to be a pastor of God and you are involved in evil in our community?
Do you think Jesus would be understanding?
We're about worship.
These folks.
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them?
No church had gathered for worship, which we do every Sunday, and we were interrupted by this group of protesters. Yeah. We asked them to leave, and they obviously have not left.
So I want everyone to note the language that the man in the church used. He said interrupt. They interrupted the service with a protest and they did not leave. However, when Pam Bondi spoke of it, she called it an attack. They were attacked. The language from the right is the attack, attack. And so again, we have to always pay attention to the pattern of how they are trying to label people in a very 1984 way, that if they just keep repeating it, we'll ignore what we saw with our own eyes, which what I saw was the kind of church service I would like to see. People standing on the right side of the Bible.
Yeah, no, I got some firsthand accounts of this because obviously my good friend Don Lemon was there, reporting on the entire scene. And I mean, listen, if you want my personal thoughts, do I totally understand the outrage of this community? Yes. Do I understand their desire to go and confront a purported pastor who is also the supervising? I think he works for. I know he works for Homeland Security. He's the one of the removal officers or whatever with ICE and CBP. So yeah, I get that. I don't know if I would have gone into a church during their service, but I also recognize that Kristi Noem and Pam Bondi's, declaring each and every one, including Don Lemon, who was there in his journalist capacity, a domestic terrorist, and then going forward and attempting to prosecute, and I think arresting 3 individuals, tried to arrest Don Lemon as well, but the judge refused to sign the warrant, and good on that judge. But pursuing the FACE Act, which for those of you who are not familiar, this was a law that was written and used to combat the Ku Klux Klan. And I know that this administration, Pam Bondi, have been salivating to charge people with color under the FACE Act. And so they went after Don Lemon. I think there were 2 individuals of the 3 that were arrested that were people of color. And then 1 white protester, because you got to arrest a white guy as well, just to say, well, we're not being fucking racist. Make no mistake about it. That was a racially motivated, prosecution. It's, yeah, I mean, it's, and I talked to Don and, obviously like, he's got gallows humor like me and was, but you could tell like he was unnerved about the whole thing. Just the idea of being a journalist and falling under, being called a domestic terrorist by some of the most powerful people in the land, and then learning that they did in fact attempt to prosecute you for, pursuing, your First Amendment protected liberties is insane.
Yeah, in the words of my forefathers, though, if they were to try to arrest him, I wish a motherfucker would. Come
No,
now.
I mean, it would have been, there would have been a tremendous outpouring of support. I think there would have been massive protests. Don Lemon is a well-known and for most of America, a well-loved, beloved individual who is, as a journalist, is standing up and meeting the moment appropriately. I mean, we've had countless conversations about, journalism is not stenography. You're not, just supposed to sit there idly and write down, the facts. You're allowed to draw conclusions based on the evidence, just like any other American. And I think you have a duty, a responsibility to call things as they are, especially when there's a clear pattern of behavior here, as we've seen with this administration. And so, good on Don for going there and drawing attention to that.
Well, and I think it is important to amplify, and whether or not I would have gone to a protest in a church or felt it was okay to protest in a church. I went to Catholic school. I used to go to my grandmother's Baptist church. My parents used to take me to Unity Church, and I've been to an ashram. I was raised in sort of exposed to many different religions, and in most of them, all of them, it's about community and being there for each other. And so I feel kind of almost like, if not now, when? Because there are churches that are getting involved. There's a church that's providing meals to families in Minneapolis, who can't leave their homes. And so if you are in a faith community, doing good works is a part of being in that community. And so what I love to, obviously they wouldn't have gotten that much attention if it weren't a church. And so I think right now, if not now, when, we have to draw attention to these issues. But also, I'm going to bet, because they weren't crazy. They didn't turn over tables as Jesus has or had.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that there was at least one or two or three people who asked themselves, maybe I need to do more. Maybe I can do more. Maybe I should do more. And so that's what protesting can do, is wake people up. And so, and we've got to get out of our rut. Life is so much autopilot right now. You know, you go to work, you get home, you feed the kids, you watch a little bit of TV, you go to sleep, you go to the gym. Like, everybody has their routines, but we can't keep doing the same thing. Otherwise, we're going to get the same result. And so I'm all for a little bit of shaking things up, respectfully shaking things up as much as possible.
I mean, you can do things respectfully. I prefer to be disrespectful but lawful.
Disrespectful but lawful. Okay, yes, I agree. Okay, everybody, we're going to be sometimes respectful, sometimes disrespectful, but always lawful.
Maya's like the little angel on your shoulder telling you to do things politely, and then Mike is like, yeah, you could say go fuck yourself to a congressman during a congressional hearing and give him the middle finger. And
I support that. That's the thing. I support everybody to protest in their way. And I would also to use our privileges in our different ways, right? Like, you're an American hero, so you can do that. And so it's important. You're like, oh no, I'm not. You can do that. And that's why it's important that you do. And so I feel like everybody right now needs to ask themselves, what can I do? What can I get away with? And then do that thing at their level of privilege. So that's kind of the assignment. It's a Friday, y'all. I want everybody to be able to go and enjoy their weekend as much as possible. And we will be back on Thursday. This was a special edition live of Protect and Serve, but we'll be back at our regular bat channel. It's been a long week, man. It's been a long week.
Yeah, whatever.
We'll be back next week on Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to, follow, like, subscribe, share, drop this in the group chat of one of your Don't Tread on Me friends, and tell them that they need to step it up. It's good to see you, Mike. I'm glad that you did what you did. And everybody, we'll see you next week.
See you guys.